Forward thinking.
This is Six Figure Mindset. This is a show that showcases top black and brown talent in the corporate world.
Hi, my name's Terrance Franka. I'm founder and director of Green Genesis and co-founder and commercial director of Climate ER.
Hey Terrance, how's it going?
Hey, Lekin, how you doing?
Awesome, thanks for coming. Really pleasure to have you on the show. So what is it that you're doing today?
So I'm currently working on Green Genesis and Climate ER. Climate ER are a renewable energy company. Ultimately, we develop renewable energy projects from solar farms to battery storage. Wind farms is one of the technologies we're looking at, hydrogen, and Green Genesis specializes in asset brokerage. In summary, I find operational projects and development projects for investment banks, and I put them together with developers and investment funds.
Nice. So, you spoke French basically then. So for all of us that have no clue what the first part, so I get the brokerage, that makes sense. Essentially, you're the middleman, you find a project, you find the funds, you bring them together.
Correct.
Accurate?
Yep.
See, I was listening. And then the second one is, so the first one then, so explain how that works, the ER. How does that?
Yeah, okay. Well, as you know, at the moment, the climate emergency that's taking place is everywhere. There's too many carbon emissions taking place. Our carbon footprint needs to be reduced globally. Every country has signed up to agreements to reduce carbon footprints everywhere. About 12 years ago, maybe even longer than that, the UK released various tariffs to the public ultimately, which generated the fact that if you were able to generate renewable energy, they would pay you for it, which obviously for my industry became a big boom because what happened is investment came into the country. And developers such as myself began developing renewable projects. So, you drive a motorway, you see a solar farm, that would be somebody like myself who would come along, lease the land from a farmer, which could be anything from 20 acres to 200 acres. So we would lease that for 30 years. We would get planning permission to build a solar farm, and we would either build it or we would sell it to a firm that would want to go and build it because it can be quite expensive to develop. So Climate ER focuses solely on early stage development. So we will be the guys on the ground, putting all these things into place, getting planning permission, and then either building the project or selling the asset once it's ready.
Cool. So the $1 million question is, these projects, if you're talking about 20 acres, 200 acres of land, these projects, how much are we talking about? What kind of budgets do you need to have to join your world?
So to develop a project, if you're looking at a 20-acre project, you're looking at anything up to £200,000 to get it. It's similar to property development, right? Because all you're doing really is having an option to the land, which means if you get planning, you can get a lease on the land for the term that you agreed, be it 10 years or 30 years. And then it's actually getting the planning permission, which is the expensive part. So they can range anything from £200,000 to £500,000 to get planning, just to get planning. And then once you are actually building the project, so they can range anything from 15 to 25 million pounds to build.
Right, over a couple of years to get them in.
To get the entire development process or just the construction process?
Just the construction.
Construction will take about 6 to 8 months, depending on the size of the project that you're building. But if you're thinking about it on the top end project we go to, before planning gets complicated, is 50 megawatts, which is 200 acres. That's about 58,000 individual solar panels.
Wow.
That are placed in a field and packed together quite tightly. So it takes a while.
Wow. So that's a long sales process, development process to get end to end before you get paid, right?
Yeah, correct. Well, planning journey from inception will take about 12 months.
And with no guarantees?
No guarantees.
Wow, intense. So obviously you're very successful, you're doing awesome stuff, and it's very obviously, like you said, it's a lucrative industry. But how do you even get into that? So I feel like we need to go back. So How did you get into energy? When did that
Accidentally.
start? Accidentally.
Complete fluke, complete accident.
Actually, thinking about, I actually remember when you told me you was getting into it. It was after you left. Was it a sporter?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, other side note, we used to work together in a sport and health club. So, because I remember you said, "Oh, you've got a role, it's an opportunity," but then obviously it now became something completely different. So, explain that. So, how did you get into energy? Because it's not something that people really know about.
Yeah, well, I went to university and did law. I did my LLB in law, which was a 3-year course, which was fun. But after my second year, coming into my third year, I didn't really enjoy it as much. And then I graduated, went into law school. So if you want to be a solicitor, you go to law school and do what's called back then a legal practice course, which is a 12 months course. If you pass that, you can then approach law firms for them to train you. It's really expensive. At the time when I did mine, it was about 10 grand. So I did my LPC, and then during my LPC, I realized I wasn't passionate about law. I liked what I learned. I enjoyed my course. It's just not what I wanted to do. Purely because I didn't feel that it was as meritocratic as I wanted it to be. I wanted to be paid based on my performance, not based on how long I've been somewhere. And everyone I've spoke to, and all my friends who are, fully fledged solicitors, sleeping in their offices, but they're getting paid a salary because they're juniors. When I had other friends who were doing a lot better in jobs where they could rise up. So I decided law wasn't for me. Unfortunately, I graduated in 2008. So for those who know what happened in 2008, that's the beginning of the credit crunch. And straight out of law school, actually, my first job was in recruitment, where I did operations and risk audit. And my first client was Lehman Brothers.
You can't write the script,
can't
right?
write this up. So I went into a recruitment firm that was in the financial services industry. They'd offered me a salary of like £22,000, which for my age group at the time wasn't too bad. But I had to build a new desk. And for those of you that don't know what that means there is nothing that has been there before me. I'm cold calling banks day in, day out, trying to get on what they call a preferred suppliers list with nothing behind me. So it was a hard slog, but I finally landed Lehman Brothers in July. Bear in mind, they went bust in August. So why the hell they were recruiting in July, I don't know. So, as soon as credit crunch hit, it became last in, first out. I was last in, so I was first out. And I took a load of odd jobs. Rather than sit at home and wallow, I took loads of jobs from selling there was a company called XLN, and I was, selling, it's an alternative to BT for businesses. So I'd travel all over, and I literally mean all over London, door to door, corner shops, big shops, everywhere, trying to get them to change over their phone lines. I then ended up at Esporta, where you and I worked, selling gym memberships.
Yeah, that's right.
To high-end clients. And then I randomly saw a job ad so I lived in Southfields with my parents at the time. And the job was in Wandsworth, which was literally a 10-minute drive, or however you want to get there. It was very quick. I applied, and they were looking for somebody I was also an estate agent, a very good one at that. And they were looking for someone who basically had legal experience and property experience. And I had the two. So I thought, okay, let me apply. Went into the job with zero expectations, and I grilled them. Absolutely. I've never been in an interview like that, because I went there with an I don't have anything to lose mentality. Turns out they were a firm who basically were looking to do rent-a-roof schemes. So if you remember, for homeowners, quite a while ago, they were offering free solar panels on their roofs. So that, the company kept the revenue, and you would get the free electricity. They hadn't recruited a single person. They didn't tell me that in the interview. My grilling got that information out of them. They were basically just recruiting someone in the team. Turns out they didn't even have the funding. So they had not secured funding when they were interviewing me. So it became a risk position. And I knew this. After the interview, during the interview, I knew this. And they were like, look, if you get in and we get everything sorted, nobody knows renewable energy. You'll be one of the first people in the country at the front of this, understanding renewable energy. Sky's the limit.
What year was this?
This was 2010.
Wow.
So when the feed-in tariff had just come out.
Wow.
Probably been out. So
what is that, just so people know?
So the feed-in tariff is the payment scheme that the government offered people who generated renewable energy.
Got it.
So if you had solar panels at the time on your roof, you're generating something like, the government will be paying you maybe £14,000 a year for sticking solar panels on your roof, which would Cost you at that time maybe £10,000, but they're doing that for 20 years, every single year, index linked. So it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer back then.
Wow.
That's what was a crossroads. I was at take a punt basically, and grow. And there's a saying that the director at the time, Paul Williams, who I didn't know at the time, had been on The Secret Millionaire. So I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know that he was successful in business. I just absolutely grilled him in this meeting. But yeah, I took the punt. I thought, it's an opportunity. If I win, and I was quite confident in my ability to deliver. If I win, it could be great. So I went in there, and I started off as the only person in the company, other than the directors, and I mean only person. I sat in a downstairs office, and it wasn't even proper window, basement windows that are slim. It was one of those windows. I was in there on my own. The directors didn't come into the office. I still went into the office I could have stayed at home and they wouldn't have known. I still went into the office every day. I got everything ready. They secured the funding, and they said, okay, Terrance, cream rises to the top. This is literally the speech. Cream rises to the top. We're going to build a team around you. If you're good enough, you will keep going up. I guess I didn't look back. I haven't looked back since.
Wow. That is extraordinary. And just off of that one decision to go for something that is not established, something that is not known, something that you can't call a friend and say, oh, by the way, and do you know anyone that's in their space? This is brand new, right? Wow. And obviously, in terms of that industry, how many people actually look like you in terms of your skin color? How many people?
Well, I've been in renewable energy now for 11, 12 years now. And for the functions we go to, I know that people recognize me because I am the black guy in renewable energy. So there are people that will randomly come up to me and say, hey, I met you. I know for a fact I've never seen this person in my life, or we've never spoken, but because they have seen me, they approach me. There aren't that many. There are more and more coming, and you notice it because as you go to more and more events, and the black faces, you pick themselves out. Yeah, it's pepper in salt seeds, right? So,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's there. There are more and more people there.
Incredible. So let's put a pin in that. So this is where you are. This is the headline. Mm-hmm. Exciting, obviously, how to get here, how you got here. So where were you born? How did it all start?
So I'm Congolese.
Where's that?
Congo? Well, it was Zaire when I was born there.
So that was banter, by the way. So no shade. So
it's
cool.
a bigger country than yours.
Keep it moving. Cool.
Wait, it's the heart of Africa. It's a republic.
I think that's a bit too strong. I think it's a bit too strong for this audience. Nah, cool. I'm just messing around. Cool. Yeah. So from Zaire, okay, which was Zaire that's now known as Congo.
It's known as Republic Democratic of Congo.
So when did you come to the UK?
Well, it's it wasn't a straightforward journey. So it's a French-speaking country. So I had a lot of my aunties and uncles who studied in Switzerland and France and had emigrated. So when I was born in Congo, my parents then moved to France when I was two and a half. I stayed there for about 4 years, and then when I was 6, we came to the UK, and I've been there ever since.
And where in the UK did you settle?
A few places, South London mainly. So firstly it was Brixton, and then it was Clapham Junction, then it was Battersea, Patmore specifically, which was nice. And then my parents moved up to Southfields.
So where did you go to school?
Secondary school. Secondary school, I went to Wimbledon College.
Cool. So what was you like at school? I'm assuming you was an athlete.
Yeah, but it wasn't really. It was a boys' school. It was a Catholic boys' school. Just normal. I mean, it was different for me because my background's slightly different because I went from primary school to private school.
Right.
So when I went to primary school, I went to a school called St. Mary's, and there was a school called Newton Prep, which was in Battersea. And my dad he was absolutely fixated on getting me into private school. So I don't know how he did it because it wasn't on a scholarship basis. He got me into Newton Prep, which was middle school. So I went there where the learning curve academically was like that. There was no build up. It was just here.
And what was your English like at this time?
I mean, English by that stage was my first language. I mean, I learned English in about 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Because I was a 6-year-old, and eventually kids just pick stuff. So by that stage, yeah, it was very fluent in English.
So you didn't have your accent. It's gone now, but
I've never known myself to have an accent.
okay,
I've been too young to remember. So
okay, cool. So you go to private school for secondary school, or just
I go to private school for middle school. So right up until year 9, I'm in private school. I then end up in Wimbledon College, which is because Newton Prep stops at that middle school.
Oh, at year 9.
It's you stop at year 8, and then you take exams to go into middle school, and you start in year 9. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So I got into schools like Dulwich College because you take the exams in manual, but my parents couldn't afford for me to pay the fees there. So I ended up back in state school at Wimbledon College.
So what was that like?
Initially, it was different. I mean, the learning curve. I really so in my first year. I mean, I probably shouldn't say this. So my dad. So I was actually supposed to join a year. I think my dad was trying to get me into year 8, and he saw the curriculum and said, "My son did this 2 years ago. There's no way I'm putting him in this year." So yeah, he got me bumped up into year 9.
Wow.
Yeah, I to this day I don't know the details. I just know I was in a year I wasn't supposed to be in. And I started year 9, which even then academically you could see the difference. There were more people in the class. There was more disruption, but the standard of the work that's being taught wasn't the same.
Wow.
Which originally you see the difference, but the longer I stayed there, you suddenly plateau and adjust.
So how did GCSEs go?
My GCSE were okay. I didn't get 10 A's and 5 A stars. They were, average ABCs really, and there wasn't anything terrible in there. But it wasn't. I mean, I got A star in French, which probably was for as best as it got. But that was a given. I didn't get a pat on the back for that.
And then what about college?
I went to Kingston College. I went there for 2 years.
What did you study?
So in Kingston College, I studied biology. Oh, it's taking me back now. So I studied biology, maths, which I hated, chemistry. I don't remember what the last course is. There were 4 of them. I don't remember what the last one was.
So you did the very academic, no creative subjects.
Yeah, no creative.
So are you
are
you not really a creative person? You're more. Would you say you're more academic than creative in that sense?
I'm definitely more academic than creative.
Interesting. So A levels go well.
A levels, well, they went okay, but I went through a puberty phase, as you do, clashing with your parents.
What does that mean? So you have to break that down. Break it down.
So my dad and I clashed. My dad is a very strong-headed African man. If you have African parents, I don't need to define that. If you don't, then you had freedom of expression growing up, which some of us didn't. So he got, and then I got to a stage where at 16, 17, I start to feel like I'm a bit more of a man, and I decided to challenge some of the authorities that my parents had put in place. And my dad wasn't impressed with some of my friend choices and my lifestyle choices, so he shipped me off to Birmingham.
What do you mean ship you? What does that mean?
Exactly that. One day he said, the question went, would you like to study in Birmingham? I said, no. Straight away, I don't know anyone in Birmingham. To, okay, you're going to Birmingham now. And for my second year of college, I went to Birmingham. So I did a 2 years in Kingston. And because one of the courses I'd changed, I didn't basically have enough UCAS points.
Okay.
So I had to finish off in Birmingham. And to fill a course, I randomly picked a course which happened to be law. So it was just literally there just to make up the numbers. I picked law to make up the numbers.
Wow. And then that's what decided for your university choice.
It became my favourite subject. I graduated. I went to the Montfort University in Leicester, mainly because I didn't want to be anywhere near London, because I'd made up my mind that I was never going back to London to be anywhere near my parents' house. Mm-hmm. I had a girlfriend in Birmingham at the time. It was between 2 universities, Birmingham Uni and Leicester, which was the nearest. And because my sister's best friend had gone there, and I got into the MU. And that's literally the only reason I went.
Wow. And university went well?
University went well. It was hard. Law's a completely different course to a lot of the other courses out there. And you can tell just by, right? The students that are struggling in the library and the others that are in the library to have a party, which happened. But yeah, look, I mean, it didn't go as well. It didn't go as well as I wanted it to. So I came out with 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
I've been predicted a 2-1 the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I fluffed my exams, so came out with 2-2. But I was never bothered.
Yeah.
I never thought, oh, doors are closed. I mean, don't get me wrong, it meant that certain roles you're applying for, they just want 2-1, so you can't apply. But I didn't really care so much, especially when I knew I was going to law school.
So you've said something that I've picked up on now, and obviously I've known you for a while. So now some things that we probably never talked about now make so much sense. Because you're not a creative, business really makes sense for you.
Yeah.
Because I always used to think you're entrepreneurial in your approach, but I didn't understand where it came from. But actually now understanding your academic background and the fact that you were an academic, so you weren't into drama, you wasn't into music, you wasn't into any of that. So your head is, so are you like a person where your head is for the numbers? Because I remember anytime we talk about something, you're the first person to send out an Excel spreadsheet to say, here's the formulas, this is what it looks like. So is that where you would say that when you think about, yourself, would you say that that's where you're comfortable?
No, I'm not comfortable with numbers. I hate numbers.
Really?
Absolutely hate numbers. I'm gonna cope my language a bit. So I remember my first day of law school. In different language, the very first thing the dean said to everybody in the room is, "Hi everyone. Well, you're here because you're all crap at maths." and everybody laughed because it's true. Because you can't. It's the guys who I was always good at English. I was always good at speaking, and when you do law school, you do what called moot court, and basically you're being a barrister and you present your course. I was always good at the oratory part.
Mm-hmm.
Hate numbers, absolutely hate numbers. I was okay. I was competent. I just didn't enjoy it because of my upbringing. I had my dad over my shoulder because maths is binary, right? 1 + 1. There's a right answer. 1 + 1 = 2. There is no okay. Like in English, there isn't. It's an acceptable answer. You analyze. Well, no, you're right or you're wrong.
Yeah.
But over the years, through the businesses that I've done, ultimately everybody does it for the same reason. It's the numbers, and if you understand the numbers, you understand everything else.
Cool. Because I think thinking about obviously your path, though you wasn't really, because I'm getting the impression that you're not really a person that's too interested in being called something, but you're more interested in just getting stuff done.
Correct. 100%.
So where does that come from? Because hearing your background, where does that come from, as opposed to some people that say, you know what, I want to be this, or you didn't have really that identity wrapped up in that?
Growing up, I've always ever had one dream, which was being a footballer. And it became apparent early in my years that that was never going to happen. And after that, I couldn't turn around and say, this is what I wanted to be. So, and obviously most people don't have the answer for a period of time, but I didn't have a passion for a particular job or a particular career or a particular role. Literally, football was what I lived and breathed. That was it. Past that, it just is what it is. But I've always been very decisive. I've always known the type of life that I've wanted. So I've always known what the end goal is. Mm-hmm. So if someone said to you, when's the stop button? I can name that for you. Where do you want to reach? How I get there, because I'm not passionate about anything other than football. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. It's, as long as it's above board. Yeah. I can do it. I've always been a very fast learner. So as long as the avenue's been there and it makes sense, I get it done. That's always been that's still my mentality now.
And I feel like that's such a really good mindset in terms of people that are entrepreneurs watching, because a lot of times people think entrepreneurs are, things that they see on Instagram, but actually it's more about tapping into who you are, like being honest with yourself about what it is for you, rather than now creating a facade to say, I want to be the next this or the next that, when actually you don't really know. Where some people would be insecure and just say, they have to have something to say, but you don't come across like someone where you have to prove to someone that, I am this person or I'm this. You don't really come across like that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the entrepreneurs that I've met, and especially the really successful one, they haven't gone out to prove anybody. I mean, some of them have. That's more of a personal vendetta. Somebody told them they wouldn't amount to anything. But generally, they've been curious. They have always been in an environment where they're curious about everything that they do and everything that happens around them. And they've always been risk takers. Right. If you don't know if you're not a risk taker, if you're not prepared to go all in, and most entrepreneurs are, it's very difficult to be successful in a world where you're remunerated based on your performance only. You don't work, you don't eat. And it's very difficult to be in that world. Don't get me wrong, it's not the same for everybody, but if you're starting from scratch, it's very difficult. I mean, I was thrust into the world of entrepreneurship. You know, the timing in which I did it wasn't, but it was a choice, but it wasn't at the same time.
Yeah, of course. So then also, the big question for me is, because I know you said you're the founder of these two companies, and obviously on paper, that looks fantastic. It looks great on LinkedIn, on the website, but real talk, you've been running your own business for the last decade.
Running my own business since about 2015.
Cool. So that means no basic.
No basic.
And there's no trust fund that you're leaning on. So it's you against the world.
Yep.
How was that process? The transition of, I'm not taking a salary anymore, this is it. How do you transition into say, cool, I'm good to go? And obviously, you know, what kind of fears, what challenges did you have?
So when I say I was thrust into it, it's exactly that. It's exactly that scenario. So I'd recently got married. We recently had a child, and I was working for a large corporate, a renewable energy corporate in the UK that specialised in large-scale solar. And they had offices everywhere in the world. And we got a new head of EMEA director who came in. And in short, he wanted to move the offices to Milan. So we used to have an office literally down the road on Lombard Street. But they're like, nope, we're moving the London team to Milan now. So they wanted me to do 5 days in Milan and then fly back home for the weekends. And at first it sounded great. Oh, working in Italy, working international. And then I thought, I can't be the husband and be the father that I want to be, especially with young children. I couldn't do that out in Milan. So I had two choices, go to Milan, well, three choices, go to Milan, get a new job, or start my own business. At the time, I had been thinking about starting my own business anyway, because being internal at a company, I saw the financial models, right? So, you know, my day-to-day jobs was basically buying projects from developers. So I saw what they do. I was responsible for, you know, getting all the lawyers to assess all the works that they were doing, getting all the technical guys to look at the projects. And then once it went through there, giving them millions of pounds. So I could see that, you know, they're spending 200 grand, but they're making 5 million pounds. And when you're behind the scenes, and bear in mind, I'm the one who's, you know, pressing buttons to say, you know, here's 5 million pounds. My salary looked nowhere near that. Nowhere near that. So I thought, you know what, it's a chance. Try and get it. And when I remember joining this company, I made a point when I first got the job that everybody would know me. So what would happen is when the phone rang at a company, I'd stop the admin and the office managers from answering the phone. I would answer the phone.
Wow.
So, hi, Terrance speaking. Even though 90% of the calls were guff, they weren't for me or they were time wasters, everybody got to know my name at the company. So when they'd call, and I'd speak to everybody from, you know, the small suppliers to really large investment funds, and, you know, you build rapport. And I got to know the people who, you know, one phone call would be, Terrance, we've just raised 500 million pounds. We need projects. I know you guys are doing X, Y, Z, but do you know anyone? No, I'll put the phone down. I have a smaller developer saying, hey, you know, we've just developed 200 megawatts of projects or 5 individual projects. We're looking for somebody who wants to buy. So I'd be like, okay, well, go and speak to that party because we wouldn't be able to look at it. And I realized I kept passing so much business that way. So I thought, okay, let me try and do this as a business. So I left that company and set up Green Genesis.
With wife and child?
With wife and child. No basic, nothing. I didn't have a safety net. I don't even think I had savings at the time. It was literally Lord, do you know what you're doing? Because I don't. And yeah, I jumped ship.
What was the first year like?
The first year is okay because very, very quickly I landed a new contract. So I landed a new contract. So a firm who I'd known heard I'd left. So like, okay, we need somebody to come in and steady the ship basically and develop for us. And I was like, okay, well, here's my rate. They're like, yeah, sure, fine. We need you for 2 years. Yep. So straight away, and this is within the first month of me doing it on my own.
Wow.
So it was okay. I thought, okay, this.
But then I think that's the crucial point, though. Yes, you made the step, but then what created that opportunity was the fact that you were doing something intentional, which was picking up the phone before everyone else and being intentional that everyone, not just in the company, but everyone that connects to your company knows you. Because I think a lot of people say, yeah, I'm ready to start. But actually, if you're going to start a business, the key thing is pipeline.
Correct.
And you can only have pipeline if you have contacts.
Yeah. I think the other thing I did, which I think not enough people do, is before I left the company, with my company email that everybody knew, I messaged all my contacts to say, I am leaving, and this is where you can contact me. And I gave them my new details of my own company. So they knew straight away, okay, he's gone there. So my phone straight away, Terrance, why are you leaving? Okay, what are you doing now? Okay, we may have some things coming up the line. So those conversations, I never planned it. I just thought, okay, let me just cover every angle as and when I can. But yeah, my first contract was I was at a competing company, ironically, doing the same thing, but I was there for 18 months.
Wow. And then you was also brokering other deals in
I was
between.
still brokering. Because I was a limited company.
Oh, yeah, because you can do whatever you want.
There's no limitations. I'm not breaching any contracts. It wasn't exclusive. Yeah, I was able to broker a contract as well as develop for another client.
Exciting. So for people watching, wanting to get into the energy space, where would you say the opportunities are in this decade, from now to 2030?
So the opportunities are in the development technologies. So technology is always developing in a faster rate. So solar is land intensive, but solar is very lucrative at the moment. It's the cheapest way of generating electricity. There's a huge demand for solar that's going to take place. So short term, we're talking about 3 to 5 years. Huge boom in solar. The development cycle's slow, but there's enough for everybody. But solar is finite. Mm-hmm. If we're talking the UK, because if we're talking about land, not every single farmer is going to want solar panels on their land. You're not going to get planning permission. But solar's global. It's not just in the UK. It's in Italy. It's in the Netherlands. It's all over Asia. New Zealand is absolutely fantastic at the moment if you're prepared to go that far. US is huge. Huge drivers for solar. Hydrogen is the next thing. Most vehicle manufacturers have already announced they're not doing diesel cars anymore. Some of them aren't even doing petrol cars anymore. They're all moving to EV cars, electric vehicles. But there's also hydrogen. Hydrogen is a different form of energy.
So who's doing hydrogen now?
What
for energy? Like, is there big companies or is it an emerging?
So right now, hydrogen is very much in its infancy. So this is a great market. I'll give away gems here.
Wait, we should pause the video so we can have another conversation so I can get the list who I need to invest in. So in terms of people is this small companies that now would be looking for seed funding to now get off the ground, or are these established players that are invested in?
It's the same principle as renewables. If you can find the land and you can get planning permission for it, you're already in a great position, because if you can't afford to build it, somebody will buy it. Right. And if you can afford to build it, there will be an end investor down the road, because a lot of the transport trucks are moving to hydrogen. A lot of vehicles are moving to green hydrogen, right? Because it's gas ultimately, and it's got a very low carbon footprint. So, these are the next technology. This is where everybody's moving, because the human race can't live on a planet as it is. I mean, every scientist has said, if we carry on burning the fossil fuels that we are, we're not going to be living in a world that we're currently in. It's not going to be recognizable. It's not going to be inhabitable. So everybody's moving towards that. So, and there'll be new technologies. So battery technology, for example, it's expensive at the moment, but everybody's trying to get into it, because once the prices get to a commercial level, it's going to revolutionize every technology, including solar, including hydrogen, including gas peaking, because batteries are so key. It's storing energy.
So I feel like we need to stop because you're giving away too much free information. I think you need to sign up to the newsletter so you can get some of this information and we can really work this out. But no, it was really great interviewing you and hearing your story. I know it's going to impact loads of people that are hearing it. Thanks very much again. And we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you.
Cool.
Forward.